Welcome to Chapter 15, Cognitive Development in Adolescence. If you remember, we talked about Piaget's earlier stages of cognitive development. We talked about the sensory motor stage, we talked about the pre-operational stage, and we talked about the concrete operational stage. When we get to adolescence, children get beyond that, just the concrete, what's going on right now, and they're able to imagine what might be, think about possibilities, and think in what is considered a hypothetico-deductive reasoning way, and they can employ what's called propositional thought. Think about the what-if statements or imagining hypotheticals. The children in younger stages might have a much harder time wrapping their head around, and this is called the formal operational stage, age 12 and up. And Piaget believed that not all adults actually reach the highest level of formal operational stage. When we get to the formal operational stage, a lot of things are going on. We're beginning to be able to think more abstractly. If you think about world peace, or you think about children starving in the other side of the world, or you think about recycling, or you think about the environment, you think about death and dying. So all of these things are very abstract. Children of a younger age might have a hard time wrapping their head around these things. During this stage, children there's a lot of growth in the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain that connects new neural pathways, and it's continuing through the teen years. And actually, the brain does not finish developing until, for some people, the early to mid 20s. And so they say for men around 25, for women 22, 23, I think. Culture also comes into play when we talk about achieving the formal operational stage. Piaget believed that not everyone, like I said, achieves this stage, and theoretically he says 40 to 75% of college students in the general population do not get to this level of depth in thinking. During this time, there's a lot going on, and maybe you remember in your own adolescent stage, there's a lot of fighting with parents. Because you are now able to reason in an abstract way, so you're now more likely to question authority figures and question parents. That children, or I should say teens, tend to become more idealistic about the world. They can often become argumentative, and sometimes it's just for the sake of argument, because they're learning that they can have an opinion and that their opinion matters. So what about those people who disagree with Piaget and maybe criticize his theories? Well, research finds that there are individual differences in cognitive abilities, and they're not universal, which I think we've talked a lot about, that everything is not an exact science in this. Some researchers suggest that cognitive development is more continuous and less stage-like. So remember, we talked about continuous and discontinuous change, where Piaget looks at it more as discontinuous. Some theorists say it's more continuous. He also, again, and we talked about this before, he focuses more on what kids don't know and more of what's lacking rather than what they are capable of. So even though we have those criticisms, there's still a lot of positives and support of Piaget's work. His view of how children come up with ideas, definitely, and how kids construct and transform information, how they learn, definitely has been substantiated more currently. And a lot of classroom reform and things that they're making changes in education, a lot of that is rooted in Piagetian theory. And his statements about nature of cognitive development has led to a lot of the development in the information processing approach. In the information processing approach, we've talked about how people take in and use and store information, and there's still a lot going on during adolescence at this time. And another big deal of what's going on now is metacognition. Metacognition, remember, meta as a prefix is when we talk about knowledge of or understanding of, and cognition is our thinking. And so during adolescence, we become a lot more aware of our own thinking and how we think, and it makes us a lot more, they use the word here, introspective and self-conscious, because you're becoming aware that maybe what your thoughts and what's going on in your head is different from what's going on in other people's heads. And it will affect us socially as well when you think about, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm different from other people. And so there's a lot going on in that sense as well. There are three terms that are very important when we talk about egocentrism in adolescence. When we talked about little kids, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, and we talked about egocentrism, how it's very hard for them to take and understand something from somebody else's perspective. Well, adolescents come around, and I used to say I thought teenagers and 2-year-olds were very similar, and they really are, because when we talk about adolescent egocentrism, it's that sense of only being able to see the world from your point of view. Well, what does that mean? Well, do you ever remember having an argument with your parents? Maybe they wouldn't let you stay up past a certain time, or they wouldn't let you have a cell phone when you wanted one, and you felt that they couldn't understand. They couldn't see it from your view, and it's hard to understand when we think about our parents that, oh wait, they were teenagers once too. This is not a unique experience, that I'm the only person who's a teenager in the whole wide world, the only person who's ever been a teenager in the whole wide world. But I think a lot of adolescents feel that way, and they think that they really are. And so that's what adolescent egocentrism is about. Did you ever get embarrassed because you were out with your parents? And maybe you bumped into a group of kids from school, and you were with your parents, and you get very embarrassed. Imaginary audience is that sense that everybody's looking at me. Maybe they notice that you don't want to wear the same shirt to school twice in 1 week because everybody's going to notice, or you have a zit on your nose, and you can't go to school because your zit or your bad hair day, because every single person will be staring and looking at you. That's imaginary audience. Personal fable. I think we all have had those. That could be things like, drunk driving accidents happen to other people. They don't happen to me. Having unsafe sex, and getting pregnant or getting a venereal disease, that happens to other people. That wouldn't happen to me. And that it's really that what happens to me is unique and exceptional, and doesn't happen to other people. So it's thinking about the self as unique in a situation. So it could be what does happen to you or what doesn't happen to you would be unique and different from everybody else. When you hear about Lawrence Kohlberg, I'd like you to think moral development. Think about what moral means. It's our sense of right and wrong. If you look in your textbook on page 383, they give you what's called the Heinz dilemma. And I'm just going to read it to you really quickly. It's a very famous story, and the way people handle it and how they answer the question, and not just how they answer the question, but why they answer it the way they do, shows a lot, according to Kohlberg, in the way they think morally. So the story goes, your wife is near death from an unusual kind of cancer. One drug exists that the physicians think might save her, a form of radium that a scientist in a nearby city has recently developed. The drug, though, is expensive to manufacture, and the scientist is charging 10 times what the drug costs him to make. He pays $1,000 for the radium and charges $10,000 for a small dose. You have gone to everyone you know to borrow the money, but you can get together only $2,500, 1/4 of what you need. You've told the scientist that your wife is dying and asked him to sell it more cheaply or let you pay later, but the scientist has said, no, I discovered the drug and I'm going to make money from it. In desperation, you consider breaking into the scientist's laboratory to steal the drug for your wife. And the big question is, should you do it? And it's not just should you do it, but once it's established you should or shouldn't, the question is why and what was behind your reasoning. So according to Kohlberg, there's 3 levels of cognitive development. There's pre-conventional morality, conventional morality, and post-conventional morality. And depending how you answer and why you answer would explain and kind of show which stage you're in. So this table, this is the top half of the next slide, we'll have the other half, but this table is in your book on page 384, and it's his sequence for moral reasoning. So he has the 3 levels, and each level has 2 stages. So in the pre-conventional stage, this is really about thinking about external authorities, caring what other people think, not wanting to get in trouble, and being rewarded by your parents, by police, by society, by teachers. So it's all about if you let her die, you don't want to get in trouble. Or you shouldn't steal it because if you get sent to jail, it's all about what the police catching up with you. When you look at the second, so that's pre-conventional. At the second level, conventional, think about being a conformist, fitting in as a member of society, being a good boy, good girl. It's really what other people will think of you. And then the second, because each level has 2 stages, the stage 4, it's all about social order. And again, it's fitting in as a member of society. Post-conventional morality is, think about universal principles And I know I've seen this on the MTEL, and there's a question about Lawrence Kohlberg, and it says, according to the theories of Lawrence Kohlberg, and again, this is on the practice test, no promises it's on the real test, but it says children move, moral development thinking develops in steps, and it talks about beginning with external authority and moving toward respecting universal principles. And the post-conventional morality, think about universal principles. This is really when you think about breaking a law because you don't think it's just on a really higher level. If you think about Gandhi, if you think about Martin Luther King, people who really thought about what was best for universally, even above their own ideals. So it's that highest level of moral development, and Kohlberg believed that not necessarily everybody reached those highest stages and levels. Carol Gilligan. She thought, okay, she understood what Kohlberg was saying, but she said, you know what, I think women are different. And so she said that with women, she believed that they looked at morality in a 3-stage process. She said stage 1 is considered orientation toward individual survival, stage 2, goodness as self-sacrifice, and stage 3, morality of nonviolence. So what does all that mean? Well, stage 1 would be about the individual and concentrating on what's best for the individual. Stage 2, and actually just to think about an example, the book gives the example of children playing a game. So I always picture one kid wants to play Candyland and the other child wants to play Chutes and Ladders. And they both insist on only playing the game they picked and they don't want to compromise. Stage 2, I picture each child saying, no, we'll play your game because that's what you want to do. And it's sort of, no, we'll do what you want to do because I'm sacrificing. And by my self-sacrificing, I'm doing good. And I think there can be a tendency for people, maybe even especially women, to feel like they're doing someone a favor because they're sacrificing. I know I always joke that if my husband wants to go out to dinner and I'll say, I'll feel like I'll sacrifice the kind of food I wanted to do, to go out for where you wanted to go. I think we often do that where we feel like we're making the sacrifice of what we want for someone else, and somehow by doing that, we're doing good. And stage 3 is morality of nonviolence. And so I go back to picturing those kids playing the game, and it's sort of, you know what, I wanted to play Candyland, you wanted to play Chutes and Ladders, maybe we should go play outside on the swings, and that way there's no conflict and not having any violence. And so Carol Gilligan sees that as more of the way women go through stages of moral development. There's a lot going on when children make that transition from elementary school into middle school, and it's also the same time that there's a lot going on in their body that's making changes. You're going from being in the same room with the same kids all day, and you were also probably the big man or big woman on campus when you were in 5th or 6th grade, and then you get up to middle school, and now you're not the top dog anymore, you're kind of at the bottom again. And so children experience all kinds of different changes at that time. So in middle school, they say in the United States, over half of 8th graders are not proficient in reading, math, or science. In American 8th graders, we rank below average when compared to other countries. Finland, if you look at this chart, ranks first, and then Korea, then Japan, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Iceland, France, Austria, Germany, Ireland, Slavic Republic, Norway, Luxembourg, Poland, Hungary, Spain. Oh, wait, here we are, United States. These are, just looking at where we fit compared to other countries in academics. And these are, we're not doing so great in a lot of these areas. We rank 12th out of the 15 countries that were measured here. There seems to be a very clear-cut line showing that socioeconomic status has a direct correlation to school performance and individual differences. Socioeconomic status, if you think about the education level of the parents, income, and all these things come together, and there definitely shows this relationship is real, and that middle and higher SES, socioeconomic status kids, they get higher grades, they do better on standardized tests, they complete more years of schooling, less likely to drop out. These are all factors that come into play when we talk about socioeconomic status, and it really makes a big difference. I will finish the second half of chapter 15 in another video, so I will see you in a few minutes.